Chapter 5 of The World Set Free by H. G. Wells. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Adam Marsatich, June 2009, Alexandria, Virginia. The World Set Free by H. G. Wells. Chapter the 5th. The Last Days of Marcus Karenin. Section 6. About 11, Karenin had his midday meal, and afterwards he slept among his artificial furs and pillows for 2 hours. Then he awoke and some tea was brought to him, and he attended to a small difficulty in connection with the Moravian schools in the Labrador country and in Greenland that Gardner knew would interest him. He remained alone for a little while after that, and then the two women came to him again. Afterwards, Edwards and Kahn joined the group, and the talk fell upon love and the place of women in the renascent world. The cloud banks of India lay under a quivering haze, and the blaze of the sun fell full upon the eastward precipices. Ever and again as they talked, some vast splinter of rock would crack and come away from these, or a wild rush of snow and ice and stone, pour down in thunder, hang like a wet thread into the gulfs below, and cease. Section 7. For a time, Karenin said very little, and Kahn, the popular poet, talked of passionate love. He said that passionate, personal love had been the abiding desire of humanity since ever humanity had begun, and now only it was becoming a possible experience. It had been a dream that generation after generation had pursued, that always men had lost on the verge of attainment. To most of those who had sought it obstinately it had brought tragedy. Now, lifted above sordid distresses, men and women might hope for realized and triumphant love. This age was the dawn of love. Karenin remained downcast and thoughtful, while Kahn said these things. Against that continued silence, Kahn's voice presently seemed to beat and fail. He had begun by addressing Karenin, but presently he was including Edith Haydon and Rachel Borkin in his appeal. Rachel listened silently. Edith watched Karenin and very deliberately avoided Kahn's eyes. "I know," said Karenin at last, "that many people are saying this sort of thing. I know that there is a vast release of love-making in the world. This great wave of decoration and elaboration that has gone about the world, this efflorescence, has of course laid hold of that. I know that when you say that the world is set free, you interpret that to mean that the world is set free for love-making. Down there, under the clouds, the lovers foregather. I know your songs, Kahn, your half-mystical songs, in which you represent this old hard world dissolving into a luminous haze of love, sexual love. I don't think you are right or true in that. You are a young, imaginative man, and you see life, ardently, with the eyes of youth. But the power that has brought man into these high places under this blue-veiled blackness of the sky, and which beckons us on towards the immense and awful future of our race, is riper and deeper and greater than any such emotions. All through my life, it has been a necessary part of my work. I have had to think of this release of sexual love, and the riddles that perfect freedom and almost limitless power will put to the soul of our race. I can see now, all over the world, a beautiful ecstasy of waste. Let us sing and rejoice and be lovely and wonderful. The orgy is only beginning, Kahn. It was inevitable, but that is not the end of mankind. Think what we are. It is but a yesterday in the endlessness of time that life was a dreaming thing. Dreaming so deeply that it forgot itself as it dreamt, its lives, its individual instincts, its moments, were born and wondered and played and desired and hungered and grew weary, and died. Incalculable successions of visions of sunlit jungle, river wilderness, wild forest, eager desire, beating hearts, soaring wings and creeping terror, flamed hotly, and then were as though they had never been. Life was an uneasiness across which lights played and vanished. And then we came, man came, and opened eyes that were a question and hands that were a demand, and began a mind and memory that dies not when men die, but lives and increases forever, an overmind, a dominating will, a question and an aspiration that reaches to the stars. Hunger and fear and this that you make so much of, this sex, are but the elementals of life out of which we have arisen. All these elementals, I grant you, have to be provided for, dealt with, satisfied, but all these things have to be left behind." "But love," said Khan. "I speak of sexual love and the love of intimate persons, and that is what you mean, Khan." Karenin shook his head. "You cannot stay at the roots and climb the tree," he said. "No," he said, after a pause. "This sexual excitement, this love story, is just a part of growing up and we grow out of it. So far literature and art and sentiment and all our emotional forms have been almost altogether adolescent, plays and stories, delights and hopes. They have all turned on that marvelous discovery of the love interest, but life lengthens out now and the mind of adult humanity detaches itself. Poets who used to die at 30 live now to 85. You too, Khan! There are endless years yet for you, and all full of learning. We carry an excessive burden of sex and sexual tradition still, and we have to free ourselves from it. We do free ourselves from it. We have learned in 1,000 different ways to hold back death, and this sex, which in the old barbaric days was just sufficient to balance our dying, is now like a hammer that has lost its anvil. It plunges through human life. You poets, you young people want to turn it to delight. Turn it to delight. That may be one way out. In a little while, if you have any brains worth thinking about, you will be satisfied, and then you will come up here to the greater things. The old religions and their new offsets want still, I see, to suppress all these things. Let them suppress, if they can suppress, in their own people. Either road will bring you here at last to the eternal search for knowledge and the great adventure of power." "But incidentally," said Rachel Borkin, "incidentally, you have half of humanity. You have womankind, very much specialized for this love and reproduction that is so much less needed than it was." "Both sexes are specialized for love and reproduction," said Karenin. "But the women carry the heavier burden." "Not in their imaginations," said Edwards. "And surely," said Khan, "when you speak of love as a phase, isn't it a necessary phase? Quite apart from reproduction, the love of the sexes is necessary. Isn't love, sexual love, which has released the imagination? Without that, sir, without that impulse to go out from ourselves, to be reckless of ourselves and wonderful, would our lives be anything more than the contentment of the stalled ox?" "The key that opens the door," said Karenin, "is not the goal of the journey." "But women!" cried Rachel. "Here we are! What is our future, as women? It is only that we have unlocked the doors of the imagination for you men. Let us speak of this question now. It is a thing constantly in my thoughts, Karenin. What do you think of us? You who must have thought so much of these perplexities." Karenin seemed to weigh his words. He spoke very deliberately. "I do not care a rap about your future as women. I do not care a rap about the future of men, as males.